Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely honored to have you here in today's video. All right, so I'm going to be speaking about hustle culture and a couple other different types of cultures that are similar to this that are so damaging to who you really are and what you really want in life, but they're mixed in this crazy illusion and it's packaged very nicely and then it's given to you as if this is what's right, as if this is the right path. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So when we're looking at hustle culture, what exactly is hustle culture? Hustle culture is a collective archetype of consciousness that says the more you grind, the more you work, the more you do, the more you hustle, the more successful you will be. And the more successful you will be, the more happy you will be. So hustle, 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 hustle. Okay, that's generally the essence of hustle culture, is to do, and do. And there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of teachers that are promoting these types of ways of being and promoting these types of ideologies. It's very common for the average person to think the more that I hustle, the better I am, the more successful I'm going to be, the more happy I'm going to be. But what's really important to know about this is that the happiness that you get from hustling and then accomplishing certain levels of success does not attribute to true fulfillment and true satisfaction. Matter of fact, the happiness that you get from hustling and doing is more so of a euphoria that comes from chemical releases of dopamine in your body. The difference between euphoria from chemical releases of dopamine and true satisfaction and fulfillment is that fulfillment means you know at an intuitive, instinctual, and we could even go as far as saying a soul level that what you did was meant to happen and it was the right thing to do. So what you're experiencing from the accomplishments and the success of hustle culture is you are experiencing a false sense of joy and a false sense of happiness. Because whenever you're having to do, and then do some more in order to then be successful, to then be happy, what you're missing out is that you are having to inherently abandon certain aspects. There we go. That's my food. You are inherently going to have to abandon certain aspects and certain parts of you in order to always be in that state of do. So if you're having to inherently, at a foundational level, abandon yourself in order to hustle, grind, push, and do to then accomplish, then wouldn't it make sense that the roots of what you're creating is somewhat interlaced with abandonment and some form of self-betrayal? Because of course, if you're abandoning parts of yourself, I'm sure those abandoned parts of you are going to feel betrayed by you. So if what you're creating in regards to this success is interlaced with self-abandonment and self-betrayal, then how satisfying and how fulfilling is it truly to accomplish your goals from that foundation, from that space of hustle culture? The answer to that question is it's not. It's not going to be truly satisfying. And there was this one quote that Will Smith said on it was a video that I was watching on YouTube, and Will Smith was describing two different categories of rock bottom. And the way that he described it is he said, there is such thing as a cliff top that is the complete counter and contrast to rock bottom. And essentially, cliff top is the essence of hustle culture, getting everything you literally wanted and thought you needed in order to be fulfilled, while also realizing once you've accomplished everything and you have excess of it, you are still feeling that same emptiness and that same void internally. So that's the difference between just being at rock bottom and maybe not taking any action and just kind of giving up on life and being passive, compared to the complete opposite, which is grind, 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 push, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And then you accomplish certain things and you're left with the same emptiness, the same void as the person at rock bottom. Now, from a personal perspective, I think being at cliff top is in some ways much healthier than being at true rock bottom, in the sense that if you just are passive and you're not doing anything and you just kind of give up, I think it would be wiser to be a doer and to accomplish a lot of things and to push as far as you can, even if it's coming from an unhealthy foundation. I feel like that would be a lot healthier than to just be passive and give everything up and not take any action and just kind of see yourself as a victim to life. And the reason for that being is because there's a lot of people that hit cliff top and then they course correct. And when they course correct, they now have a lot of money and they have a lot of security and they have a lot of opportunity to then be able to discover themselves. But it's still going to be just as painful as the person that's at rock bottom. The emotional processing that is. Okay, but overall, the whole point of me making this video is to make it very clear that you don't want to be in hustle culture. You don't want to hit the cliff top and you don't want to hit the rock bottom. You want to be who you really are. You want to be aligned with your intuition and your instincts. And you want to authentically, slowly, but surely move towards what is right for you and what you're truly wanting in life. What aligns with your core values? Is it financial freedom? Is it healthy relationships with other people and with your partner? Is it to have a family? Is it to do a lot of traveling? Is it to be purpose-driven, meaning everything it is that you're doing for a living is in alignment with what you feel like is an inner calling for you? These are all different things that are your unique core values. When you're in true alignment with yourself, this is what you get to embrace more of and you get to express more often. But it's not going to come with these really high highs and these really low lows. That's the path of hustle culture. That's the path of getting quick dopamine spikes and then everything crashing and then having to restart and do it all over again. And then everything comes crashing down again and start and comes crashing down again. Because as I'm saying, that path has a faulty foundation. And anything that you build on top of a faulty foundation eventually does what? Collapses. And then you have to start over. And that's okay. But how many times are you going to need to redo it and start over and learn that lesson over and over and over again? There are people that are literally addicted to hustle culture because it's not just the collective archetype of consciousness. It's the chemical releases that you get in the body and the repressed trauma that drives a person to run down this road, to run down this path. Why do I know so much about it? Because I used to live in that for many years of my life, and I've actually gotten quite successful on the surface with hustle culture. So I have personally walked down that road. I have received some of the fruits from my labor, and I have also come to that realization, this is not truly fulfilling. This is actually just as empty as the time when I was living in my dad's basement, not working, not doing anything, and basically needing to scrape up a few quarters every single day so that I could smoke some weed. Okay? So my point is that I've been in the experience myself. I know what it's like. And once again, what drives hustle culture mentality is repressed trauma. And the essence of what hustle culture is it's the promotion and the overinflation of the doing identity. So how many of us here right now have over the years, through whatever it is that we've went through, let's say in our early childhood or in our past at some point, we started to become doers rather than human beings and just being like, hey, I'm enough in the present moment and I'm able to be accepted and loved here by myself and also by other people. We become doers. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay busy. I'm going to keep my entire life on a daily basis managed. Do, accomplish. Do you really understand what drives that identity? It's a deep sense of unworthiness. It's a deep sense of shame. Do you know what feelings are underneath unworthiness and shame? Fear and sadness, and sometimes even anger. So when someone is living their life in such a way where they always have to do, that inherently means that they feel unworthy because they can't slow down and they can't be in the present moment and start to reintegrate some of that repressed trauma. So they need to tell themselves a story, basically self-convince and self-hypnotize that this is what I'm creating for myself. Because I feel unworthy internally, I'm now going to create a reality that to me seems like reflects the opposite. So I'm going to be flashy. I'm going to buy nice cars. I'm going to have a nice home. I'm going to make so much money that no one can ever deny me again. I'm going to try to compensate for my deeper sense of feeling not worthy and feeling ashamed of just being who I actually am. Because at some point, somebody in my past, maybe it was one of my parents, maybe it was some form of a caretaker, someone made me feel like I wasn't good enough. At some point, I internalized something and I really felt that I am not good enough, just as I am. Just as I am, right here, right now, in this present moment. And that festered, that built up, that negative charge of fear and sadness of not being loved for who I am and not feeling worthy as I am, grew in my body. And since I was young at the time, I didn't know how to process it. So I started to slowly become a doer. I started to develop a protective adaptation to those feelings of fear and sadness, and then I became a doer. And that doer identity runs on fear, sadness, and anger. Okay? This is what drives hustle culture. Every single person that exists within the archetype of collective consciousness of hustle culture is running off of dirty fuel that is rooted in repressed trauma in the nervous system. And it literally becomes an addiction. So when you combine the fact that hustle culture stimulates dopamine in the body when you accomplish certain goals, when you combine it with those dopamine spikes and the essence of repressing the trauma, the feeling that I'm running away from it and that I'm getting farther away from it, when you're under the illusion that those dopamine spikes mean that's a good thing and you think you're leaving your trauma in the past as if you're never going to have to face it again, one, that's a huge illusion. It's not reality. And two, you're fooling yourself because I can guarantee you that trauma that you are running away from will eventually find its way to you directly, and you are going to have a price to pay. And I don't say that to be any form of like a fear mongering or anything in that nature, but the more you run from your trauma, the more it's going to rear its head in, we could say, a catalytic type of way. It's gonna slap, in other words. And you don't want to get to that point. We want to ventilate this energy now by actually stopping, turning around and saying, I'm curious. What is here? Why am I running from this? Why do I feel like this is going to make me happy? Why am I behaving this way? Why am I doing? Is there a chance that I may be in this state of being because I'm afraid to feel certain feelings? And what would happen if I started to get curious and feel some of those emotions and start to work with them? What would happen if I started to build relationships with my wounded inner child parts of me that are still frozen in the past? Okay, that's the step that we have to take. But we have to educate ourselves with information like what I'm sharing now. We have to understand why it's important to heal trauma. And we also have to start educating ourselves and rewiring our nervous system to realize true happiness, true satisfaction, and true fulfillment can only be embodied when you are being authentic, when you are being who you truly are, which means you are congruent with all of the different feelings that are naturally in your system, no longer needing to control or manage them. Okay, hustle culture is like the prime university education of how to control and manage emotions, which in other words is like the professional path to learning how to abandon and betray certain parts of your wounded inner child in order to trade off for success. Once again, that path always ends with your wounded inner child, coming back to the surface and taking you down to the hell that you placed it in. Okay, that's where that path goes. But when you are working with that now, and you're curious about your wounded inner child now, and as I said, when you're processing all of this, you're being more self-embodied. You're more authentic to who you really are. And you're no longer having to dissociate from your self-energy to be these other types of personalities, these other types of protective adaptations. You don't have to be a doer anymore. You can just be who you are. And you can realize life can actually get a lot easier, and you can manifest just as much, if not much more, success than the path you were previously walking when you were going down hustle. Sometimes that word is hard for me to say. Hustle culture. Oh, that's a tongue twister. All right, just to pause for a second. I want you right now, as the listener, to say hustle culture 5 times fast. I want to see if you can do it. I'm going to try right now. Hustle culture, hustle culture, hustle culture, hustle culture, hustle culture, blah, blah, blah. It's a tough one. Okay. A little bit off topic, but I thought that would be a fun thing to do. But when it comes to hustle culture, that's that road. Okay? So you will never be truly satisfied when you're going down that road, and you can be a lot more successful in all the areas that you truly want in alignment with your core values by just being yourself, and the process can be a lot easier. But what that also is going to entail is that you're going to have to face the uncomfort of all of your, repressed trauma. And that's where most people fall off, because this could take months, this could take a year, this could take 2 years of having to really get to know yourself and formulate a whole new foundation within your nervous system so that you can wire it to be you again. It's the wildest thing. And you know, it's funny. Nature naturally knows how to return us back to our authentic self. So what does this mean? Do we have to really learn all these new things and apply all these new practices and these techniques to get back to it? No, not necessarily. It's actually more about what you're willing to let go of. And it's more about what are you willing to let go of, whatever that is for you that you may be in resistance to. So it's just kind of a process of death and surrender and release and then feeling. And then you'll naturally start to rewire your nervous system in a much more congruent way to who you really are. And it's wild when you start to embrace this process and you start to heal trauma, and then you start to notice, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to be that way. I can't believe I used to be a doer and I used to be in hustle culture. I can't believe I used to think that that was the path for me and that that was how I was going to be successful. It's pretty wild, but it takes time to learn this stuff. And if you are someone that is walking down the path of hustle culture, I don't shame you. I don't judge you. That's completely okay. I encourage you to keep following your intuition and trust your instincts with it, because maybe you're meant to go down that path to learn about it from going down it, to realize it's not what you really want. So that's completely okay. And sometimes we have to work with our protectors like that too. We have to go down the road while we are conscious that it's probably not who we really are. And that creates a little distance between self and that part of us. And as we go as far as we can, and we realize we're not satisfied and we're not truly fulfilled, we just learned our lesson. And now that part is fully educated and it's on board. And it's like, okay, well, we tried, we did as much as we could. We put in the time, energy, and effort, and we're left feeling wounded. So obviously this was not the right path. So let's not repeat the same cycle again. Let's re-educate the part of me that wanted to go down that road, and let's do it the right way. Let's do it the authentic way. So the reason why I felt encouraged to make this video today is because I was on YouTube yesterday and a video popped up on my feed, and it was this guy that I personally used to study from and I used to learn a lot from, mainly about 8 to 10 years ago. And I still think he's a great teacher in his own way. I think he's a great communicator. I think he's great at what he does in his own way, in his own reality. But there's a lot that I don't resonate with anymore. And there's a lot of what he's teaching that I feel like is actually in some ways quite damaging and quite hurt, yeah, I would just say that it's quite damaging. I don't think it's good. And you know, that is what it is. I mean, I don't feel obligated to like say anything about that. He's going to learn his own lessons in his life, because, you know, energy always comes back around. But my point is, I saw one of his videos pop up. I clicked on the video. I was watching it. And then right out the gate, I could tell the energy of this guy is very hustle culture oriented. And he was giving a little lecture of a group of guys that were in a room. I want to say probably like a group of 50 guys. And he was encouraging men to basically do, and be your best self all the time. Basically, he was saying things like, you have to turn a switch and you have to always be a winner. You have to always win. And he even mentioned at one point in the lecture, he said, there comes a point where you no longer lose ever again. Like, that's the internal decision that you have to make. You have to just always win. And that switch has to always be turned on. And it got to the point where there was a guy in the crowd that was speaking to him and said something along the lines of, he was in a relationship with his partner that I think, if I remember correctly, he was in a relationship with her for a pretty long-term period of time. And there was a period of his life where he wasn't winning anymore and his girlfriend left him. And it was so wild. Like it in some ways, it kind of broke my heart to hear this, because the guy seemed like a good guy. It seemed like a good, well-intentioned guy with, a decent head on his shoulders. But he was talking about, how his girlfriend left him when he stopped being that winner in life. And then he said what he had to do was he had to go to a cornfield and literally pray to God to turn back on that switch and that winner effect. And then he said he did that and he flipped that switch and he started winning again. And then his girlfriend came back. And then something else happened in his life. And then he stopped being that winner. And then his girlfriend left again. And then he switched it back on and his girlfriend came back. This is so heartbreaking for me to hear, because, as humans every single one of us is going to go through ups and downs. Every single one of us is going to go through good times in our life, and we're going to go through what we could call bad times in our life, positives and negatives. This is what life is all about. And when it comes to, finding who's right for you, or maybe I should even say attracting who's right for you in your life, these are the people that are able to be with you and support you through your highs and your lows. So for example, if I ever go through a situation and I have my group of friends, I have people that I'm very closely connected with. If I ever go through a really tough situation, which actually I did, this was last year, I went through a huge fallout with someone that was one of my best friends and someone that I was dating at the time, where they both essentially turned on me and they started slandering me and making up all these crazy lies and these, allegations about myself that were not true at all and was really hurtful. So I went through this, roughly about a year ago from the recording of this video. And there was a lot of people that I thought were friends that ended up basically siding with the people that were betraying me or the people that were stabbing me in my back. And that was a really wild thing to see, because I went through this really hard time where there was, this stuff going on that was clearly inappropriate. It was clearly, to me, it felt like, why is this happening? Like, why are you guys doing this to me? Between my friend and my ex-girlfriend, I was really, in many ways, I was shocked and I was confused, but I also did understand why it was happening too. I could understand. I'm conscious enough to realize that I co-created that experience. I'm not a victim in that. But the point that I'm making is, there was a lot of people that claimed they were my friends and claimed that they would have my back if anything ever happened or whatever. But then when that whole situation broke out and then there was a huge, kerfuffle in my community, they just left. They were gone. They were nowhere to be seen. So when I went through this really rough time, a lot of people that I thought I was close with, I thought were close to me because that's what they told me, were nowhere to be seen. And they just kind of literally disappeared. They were gone with the wind, gone with the dust. And I remember even some of them, I tried reaching out. I'm like, hey, where are you at? Like, are you going to have my back in this? And they were just, they were just like, essentially, I don't have capacity to do this. Like, this is not, I don't want to get involved. And it's like, okay, I got you. But like, are you my friend or what? Are you supposed to be a support, or because that's what you told me before all of this. But then when this happens, you leave. So long story short, I was able to see the people that weren't in my corner when I went through a rough time. And then I was able, in contrast, to see all the people that stood by me and even fought for me. I had people that I would have never guessed that stood by my side and literally fought for me. They fought for my integrity. They fought for my honesty. They fought for just my position in the whole situation. And that's not something I needed from them. And that's not something I asked them to do, but they did it on their own accord. And that showed me these are real friends. These are real people that I appreciate, that are willing to, be supportive during my highest highs and my lowest lows. Okay. So taking it full circle back to this guy in this lecture video that I saw, his girlfriend left him every time he went through his lowest lows. And internally, he felt like he needed to become something outside of himself. He needed to dissociate and turn that switch on of the winner effect, and then he would attract his girlfriend back. And he did that on multiple different occasions. And the worst part is, in the lecture, the guy who was doing it, he gave the whole audience a clap because he was able to do that. Okay, so because he was able to get his girlfriend back, because he flipped that switch, he made sure the whole audience approved of that and they all clapped to that. And then the poor guy also said this. He said, and he was very proud about it too. It was a really strange thing to see, but he mentioned, he's like, yeah, what I realized, and it breaks my heart because I see a wounded part of this guy that I wish I could just kind of help him really understand what he's actually experiencing and what that means. But he was so convinced that that's not the truth because he's in this like hustle culture mentality. But what he ended up saying, which was really sad, honestly, is he was like, yeah, what I learned from all of this is that there are certain parts of me that my girlfriend is not able to see. And he said it in a proud way. Like he said it in a way that's like, this is what I learned from that whole experience. So therefore, I will never, ever show those parts of me while being with her, because if I do, she'll leave me. And the whole audience was clapping, and the guy who's running the seminar is like approving of it. Yeah, you're being a man. You're being a man. You're a winner. That's the winner effect. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a long way to go as a culture and as a collective, and especially as men. Which is why, I'm honored to be able to be where I'm at and to be able to do what I do and to teach what I teach. But there was a point in Jeremiah's process where I used to believe those same things. I have been in relationships with women where I felt the exact same way. I can't show this part of me, this exiled, wounded inner child part of me, because if I do, my girlfriend will think I'm weak and then she'll abandon me. So obviously, I've done a lot of healing. I've gone through a lot of life experience and a lot of different, we could say, education. And I realized that's not the answer. That's the most unfulfilling thing you could ever be in. Why? Because I've been in it. I've experienced it. I've been that perfect person, never showing my weakness, to eventually be forced by nature into my weakness through a health issue. And then when I was at my lowest low and I counted on my partner to be there, she left me. So I've been through that. I know where that leads. I'm thankful that my soul allowed me to learn these lessons early on. But my point now is I want to educate all of you from my life experience and from what I've learned so that you don't also have to go down that same path. So in other words, with this guy that was in that seminar, it's what should be is you should be with somebody that is able to go through those ups and downs with you. And you should absolutely be able to be vulnerable enough to show all of the different parts of yourself with your partner. Now, of course, there's a process to unraveling that. There's a safety factor. There's a container of that right space to do it. But this is something that is very important when you're building real relationships with real people that are being their actual authentic selves. If you are ever in a relationship with somebody that you feel like you can't be you with and you can't be all of you with, that is a huge indication that there needs to be a change in the relationship. And first, that change is going to start with the relationship you have with you. Okay? So that's what I wish I could have, if I ever came across this guy and I could tell that to him, I would have said those exact things to him. Like, hey, are you sure you want to be with a girl that every time you go into your wounded inner child, she leaves you because she thinks you're weak and doesn't trust you? Or do you think it would be wise to let her go and discover yourself and come more into your true power, and then eventually attract that right person that can actually meet you where you are and see you for who you are, right? Because in his dynamic, turning on that winner effect, turning on that hustle culture, doer, winner, 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 think positive, grind. That's a resonance. That's an energetic frequency that broadcasts. So every time he's in that energy, he's resonating with people that feed off of that energy, or people that need that energy in a codependent way. And then when you turn that energy off, those broadcasts decrease, and then it causes those people to leave out of your life. But then it creates space for people that are not codependent to come into your life. It creates space for people that are also doing the real inner work to start coming into your life. So it takes time to go through the shift, but it's very important to experience. But I wanted to mention all of that because this plays into that whole hustle culture collective archetype. There's people that think they have to be that way in order to have their relationship work, in order to have their money come in order for this thing to happen the way that it's supposed to, etc. But remember, there are other ways to do this stuff successfully. And you don't have to co-sign your soul to hustle culture. You don't have to abandon and betray your inner child to be truly successful and to, most importantly, be fulfilled with your life. All right. So this is the essence of what I really wanted to communicate in today's video. So hopefully this could have directly spoke to some of you out there. All right. Now, with that being said, I have a direct pathway now that is an opportunity for you to finally start going through the deeper process of healing your childhood trauma and regulating your nervous system. Because when you regulate your nervous system, your entire life changes for the better. I have a full trauma course that takes you from start to finish on absolutely everything you need to know. All of the different practices and education that I've personally used in my life to regulate my nervous system and completely change my life, which is also the formula that I'm teaching every single client that I work with people from all over the world. Okay? This is all on my Patreon. The first link below, the collection section is called the Trauma Course. I highly encourage you to take advantage of it. It's time. Okay, tier number 3 of the Patreon is very unique. This is called the Universe Be Healing Ritual. This is a literal ritual, which is a remote energy transfer that is led by me, that is directed to you as the receiving participant to surface trapped trauma that's currently in your body, to bring it up to the forefront of your conscious awareness so that you can finally start processing it, feeling through it, and then ultimately releasing the trapped energy from your body. As you start to release this from your system, it grounds you back into your self energy again. That starts to regulate your nervous system, and then slowly but surely your entire life around you also starts to regulate and change for the better. There's about 200 active members that are participating in this on a monthly basis, including myself. And every single month I do this, and I've been doing this for about 4 years now, actually a little bit over 4 years, there is a huge emotional release that I personally experience, and I know a a whole bunch of other people that are participating experience that happens the night of and the day after. So if this is something that you're interested in, and I want to say this too, this is not a quick fix. This is a real energetic catalyst that is going to bring things up that most likely you've been trying to push down. So if you're willing to go into that and know yourself at a deeper level and heal once and for all here, some of these core wounds you have, and then change your life for the better, then this is for you. If you're not committed to that process, then I would say this is not for you. Okay? Once again, tier number 3, first link below. I would be honored to be a part of your process. Okay, second link. This is where you can book one-on-one calls with me, or you can jump into mentorships. This is the most powerful yet intimate way to connect. I get to know you on that deeper personal level and understand your trauma history specifically. Then I get to help you create a foundation that will support you in regulating your nervous system so that you can better heal some of that trauma, release it from the system. And ultimately, once we have the nervous system regulated and we have a healthy foundation in place, then what we can start talking about is Kabbalistic initiation, which is a full education on Kabbalah and practices that are guided by me to help you initiate through the system so that you can go through your trauma healing process at an even deeper level. Now, that may not be for everybody, but if that's something you're interested in, I'm very experienced with that as well. And I would be honored to be a part of your process in that way too. So that's the second link below. We'll leave it there. Then the final link, third link below. This is the YouTube memberships. As you become a YouTube member, you're going to get special recognition and special shout outs when I'm doing live streams. And I would love to have you there. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day or nights, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Later.